The duel was over. The men on the ship were waiting to see, curious, wondering who would be coming back to the ship and who they would never see again. The victor slowly made their way back to the ship. It was Mary Read. But still, many of the men on board did not know that Mary Read was a woman. She probably went with the name John Read or something similar. But there was one man that knew for certain that Mary Read was a woman, and that was the man that lay dead on the shore. A few months before, Read joined a crew that was heading for the Caribbean. While on board, she fell in love with a carpenter. But that carpenter got into an argument with another member of the crew, who challenged him to a duel. Read was heartbroken when she heard this, because she knew that he was just a simple carpenter, and he was not a fighter, and he probably would lose the duel. So, she decided to challenge the man a few hours before, so that she could save the man she loves. As they made their way to the shores of the beach, Mary Read, fueled by emotion, was surprisingly calm and stared at the man who was about to die. They stood back to back, walked 10 paces, turned and faced each other, and charged with their swords in hand. Mary was ready. She was no stranger to death. In fact, it surrounded her entire life. With a military background and having to fight for everything she ever had, I would say the odds were in her favor. It didn't take long. A couple of slashes with the cutlass, and her assailant was knocked to the ground. She stabbed him in the chest, walked back over to her gun, pointed it between his eyes, and before she pulled the trigger, she opened up her shirt, showing him that not only did you lose, but you lost to a woman. The story of Mary Read, a notorious female pirate from the early 18th century, is a fascinating blend of adventure and disguise, and a defiance of the social norms of her time. Most of the information that we have on Mary Read comes from Captain Charles Johnson, who wrote the book A General History of the Robberies and Murders of the Most Notorious Pirates, which was written in 1724. Now, a lot of historians have argued that some of that book does have a little exaggeration, but a lot of it does have facts, so we're going to take it as is. Also, you might have noticed there's a couple of AI generated pictures just to enhance the video, so sit back and enjoy as we tell the tale of the pirate life of Mary Read. Mary was born in England around the late 17th century, and some would say around 1695, but we can't be sure. Read's mother was married to a sailor in which they had a son. After the man deserted the family or possibly died, she had an affair that resulted in the birth of Mary. Then, following the death of her half-brother, Mary was passed off as a boy in order to receive money from her grandmother. Mary was just 13 years old when her grandmother died, so she had to find a job and get to work. She continued to dress as a boy and gained employment as a footman, but it didn't take long for her to be dissatisfied with her work, so she decided to join the British military. Mary's military career included both Army and Navy service, during which she might have fought in some of the ongoing conflicts in that era, such as the War of the Spanish Succession. While in the Army, she tried to become an officer but failed, so she left the infantry and joined the cavalry unit, during which she fell in love with a fellow soldier, and they were married. The couple left the military and ran a public house called the Three Horseshoes In the Netherlands, Mary then suffered two heavy blows. First, her husband died. Then the public house faced ruin when the end of the war meant that soldiers moved on and they lost their clientele. Mary, not knowing what to do, decided to return to being a soldier. This was a peacetime era, and there was not much hope for advancement. So, staying with her disguise as a man, she joined a crew that was headed for the Caribbean. It was on board this ship she fell in love with a carpenter. The carpenter had an argument with a fellow soldier, and we know this part of the story because we already talked about it at the beginning of the video. A duel happened, Mary was victorious, and she returned to the ship. But shortly after that, Mary's life took a dramatic turn when during that voyage, her ship was captured by pirates. Facing with the choice of joining the pirates or death, she chose to join them. This marked the beginning of her career in piracy, a role she continued to undertake under the disguise of a man. The world of piracy, lawless and dangerous, surprisingly offered her more freedom than she could find in regular society. Oh yes, and there was never a mention of her lover Carpenter ever again. As a pirate, Mary was involved in the typical activities during the Golden Age, attacking ships, looting, and engaging in sea battles. Her true identity as a woman was known to very few. She was known for her courage and fighting skills, which earned her respect among her peers. But in 1718, she accepted the king's pardon and became a member of a legitimate privateer crew. She was stationed in New Providence, and that's where she met John Calico Jack Rackham and Anne Bonny. The two women recognized each other's true identities and developed a bond, fighting side by side in numerous engagements. Mary and Bonny quickly had a reputation of being fierce and ruthless. Now, remember the duel that we talked about at the beginning. Some historians put that during this time frame. Mary fell in love with the carpenter on Jack Rackham's crew, and he got into a fight with another pirate, and then Mary defended the person that she loved in an earlier duel. So depending on which book that you read, the story of the duel will be found either before she joins Rackham's crew or during. Either way, a duel happened and Mary was victorious. The end of Mary Read's pirate career came when Calico Jack's ship was attacked by a pirate hunter commissioned by the governor of Jamaica. By October 1720, English Captain Jonathan Barnett managed to corner Rackham's ship. While most of the crew, including Captain Jack Rackham, hid under the deck, Mary and Anne fought fearlessly until they were both captured. The crew was then taken to Jamaica where they were tried and many of them hung for crimes of piracy. Jack Rackham's body was hung near the entrance of Port Royal's harbor as a warning to the would-be pirates. As for the women, they were able to delay their execution because they convinced the courts that they were pregnant. Sadly, Mary Read died in prison in 1721, likely from a complication of fever. While some reports say that Anne Bonny later traveled to Cuba, where she lived out the rest of her days. Mary Read's story is remarkable for several reasons. She navigated and survived in the dangerous and male-dominated world of piracy, a feat almost unheard of for a woman in the 18th century. To this day, Mary Read and Anne Bonny remain the only two well-documented female pirates who operated during the years of the Golden Age of piracy. And since the rise of the romanticized view of the pirate life, their reputation will continue to grow as the years go on. Thanks for watching, and if you could do us a favor, leave a like, comment, and if you're new here, subscribe. It's a free thing you could do that helps out the channel. And if you want to be a part of our History of Pirates podcast, make sure and become a member. You won't regret it. This is History of Pirates.